Howdy, it's Jim Murado, and we're driving on I-90 going towards Rapid City, South Dakota. There's a wall drug sign, and they are all over the place in this area. Just thought I would put a little video up of some of the great billboards that you see as you go towards Rapid City. And this is, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them for wall drug. Lots of other businesses. It's kind of fun reading them, especially the wall drug one. There's a ton of them. Also, there's quite a few for the Firehouse, a nice brewery restaurant that you get to when you get to Rapid City. And we actually started seeing the wall drug signs, I think, right after we left Minnesota, which was several hundred miles away. But yes, and by the way, the speed limit is 80. And that's kind of hard to get used to, but it's also too much fun not to give it a try if you're not used to driving 80. And there are people out there, I was going at least 80 a few times, and I had people pass me going significantly faster. Yes, just to prove it, I got up to 80. Little bit of bragging rights there. My wife was holding the camera for what it's worth at that moment. But yeah, I'm not real comfortable doing 80. It just doesn't seem right. And at another point on this trip, especially on the way back home, we were getting some really bad rain and some bad weather. So I slowed it down. Many other people did not. And that can make you a little nervous. But yeah, anyway, this was our third trip to South Dakota. We went in 2012 and had a great time, and we wanted to do that trip again for a long time. So last year, 2019, we went to South Dakota again, and we left South Dakota saying, man, we've got to get back there soon. We really loved it again. In fact, we promised each other that we would try to get back there within a year or two, just because it's a lovely place. Rapid City is a great town, and I think I've said it before. I think it's an underrated town. There's just so much to do, and there's so many things here that we've not done. You know, there are the 2 national park caves in the western part of South Dakota, and they've had elevator issues. Actually, when we went in 2019, they were still having those issues at this point, as far as I can tell. Plus, just to be honest, Al's Oasis, just for what it's worth, we stopped there for lunch. It was a nice little place, neat little place to stop at. Just saw that sign. Yeah, on this trip, it's September 2020 with COVID. My wife basically vetoed caves on this trip. I love going to the tourist caves. She does too, but right now we agreed that caves are out on this trip, so we will save the caves for another day. Also, wall drug was out on this trip. We did stop at a couple of malls on some off days as we drove through Iowa. Man, on this particular trip, I just wanted to mention Iowa. We were in Minnesota briefly. We were in North Dakota, Illinois, Indiana. We did stop. We were at We were at a couple hotels on the way to South Dakota. We were at a couple on the way back. We also stopped at a few malls. We stopped at a Cracker Barrel. It was interesting how each area is doing the whole social distancing and COVID thing differently. Just about every business either had masks required or masks strongly recommended on their doors. But I did not see any business, period, strongly enforcing that. Some of the malls actually were, it was just, especially the kids, the young people, they were congregating and they weren't wearing masks, and they didn't care if they bumped into you or not. And that's the way, especially I probably, if I were 12, 13, 14, 15 right now, that's probably my, the attitude I'd be having too, unfortunately. But yeah, it was interesting just to see how differently different businesses were handling it. Obviously, with a mall and with some of the hotels, they just don't have the staff and the manpower to do much about that. But it was something interesting to note. But yeah, so anyway, we actually had a cruise planned this year and paid off. We had an Alaskan cruise that we had planned to go on, and that obviously got canceled and postponed, thank goodness. So we thought, well, where would we like to go instead? And we proposed a few places, but we wanted to go somewhere where we could stay in our car a lot, maybe do some driving, see some stuff, but not necessarily get out of our vehicle. And we thought, yes, let's do South Dakota again. So here we are driving towards South Dakota for the second time in 2 years, third time in 10 years, and we really had a heck of a time once again. I'm going to put up some more videos as I go on here, because I did a lot of filming on this trip. But this was kind of an eerie, spooky trip at times. Again, there was a little bit of a storm coming through at moments. It was cloudy a lot as we drove. And we were driving early in the morning at times, 5 a.m., 6 a.m. We made one drive. We did a trip within a trip kind of thing, kind of a bonus round. We drove from Rapid City, South Dakota, up to Theodore Roosevelt National Park in North Dakota. That was one of the most interesting drives I've made in my life. The scenery was dark and eerie at times. You see those buttes on the side of you that kind of almost... Sorry about the camera work there. Camera fell off. You see those buttes on your left and your right, and they're very ghostly. And there were a ton of deer standing by the side of the road. And again, with the speed limits what they are, it's kind of scary when you're driving fast and it's dark and you go right past a deer just a few feet away from you. They all seem to know not to jump, though. They were some pretty well-behaved deer. But this was kind of a spooky trip. And, we stayed at the Hotel Alex Johnson in Rapid City, which is supposedly haunted. We stopped at the Buddy Holly, the Day the Music Died crash site in Iowa on the way up. And again, we went to the Theodore Roosevelt National Park. And I want to say I read somewhere that Roosevelt compared that area to a Edgar Allan Poe story. So I think he kind of got just kind of some of the spookiness, and that's I don't know. I kind of enjoy that. I kind of enjoy a little mysticism when we travel like that. A little bit of that kind of thing. And as I was driving this stretch of road, you think a lot about the cowboys and the Native Americans that were out here, the early pioneers. And you think about them making their way to this area. And it's very exciting. But that, think about that. Before I could drive down I-90 going at 80 miles an hour, people would take their little stagecoaches and horses and walk to make this trip. And again, it's you think about back when it was really dark and things were a little more mysterious. This would have been a heck of a trip to make. Late 1800s, mid to late 1800s and earlier. There would have been no AAA or 911 to call to help you out at that time. And, if you broke an ankle or something, you would be in some real trouble. Or if your horse broke its leg, you could really be in a bad situation. And, you think about that as you're coming out to an area like this. And that's something I like about this area. You sure get a lot for your money in this part of South Dakota. There's lots of parks. There's lots of history. You get the presidential history. Oh, yeah, and you get some road construction, too. You get, the parks. You get the nature. You get kind of the long, lonely roads. And there's just a whole lot going on in this part of South Dakota. And you know, and even when we left on this particular trip, we talked about how we wanted to get back there again as soon as we can again, because we still haven't hit, you know, Wind Cave and Jewel Cave and some of the other independently ran show caves. We haven't had time to explore the town of Custer. Sturgis, we haven't really done Sturgis. We did make it to Deadwood on this trip, and that was a lot of fun, but we only spent about half a day. I'd like to spend some more quality time in Deadwood. There's several museums and tours to take, and we did not have a chance to do that kind of stuff on this trip. So yeah, to me, this part of South Dakota makes you hungry to come back again. And I've talked to other people that feel that way too. There's just a whole lot going on here. It's such a drivable state too. Again, with the speed limits, the sights to see, and just the this is some joyful driving. I enjoy making this drive, especially if the weather's good. It did snow while we were out here. Again, early September. It sort of snowed around us, but one morning in Rapid City, and the abandoned buildings like that. Like, what's the story of that place? I want to know. Who was the last person that lived there? Who was the last person that really did anything there? There's just so much going on here. But yeah, we did get snow while we were in Rapid City one morning. We had to come down to our car. And it had kind of a light dusting of snow, so we just kind of warmed the car up. We were good to go. My wife, who's prepared for everything, actually packed. Despite my protests that we wouldn't need them, she packed winter coats and some warmer clothes, which we ended up needing. Thank goodness she insisted on taking them, though I tried to tell her we wouldn't need them. Yeah, we needed our winter coats on this trip. Yeah, there's a Firehouse Brewery sign, and they have their little fire engines by the sign too. I think that's cute. That's one of our favorite restaurants in Rapid City. It's just a cool, nice place to hang out. They've got some, they call it, I think they call it ale soup. It's what we would call beer cheese soup in my neck of the woods. But yeah, there's another one. That's a nice place. I like their marketing. They're in an old fire station. They usually have good music, good food. That's just a nice place. I'll probably talk more about them later. But yeah, there's just so much going on here. We did get a little bit of snow that we didn't plan on, but it wasn't too bad. I know Deadwood, I think, got several inches while we were there. And we ended up going to Deadwood a couple of days after their snow, so it didn't really affect us. Oh, man, I'm starting to lose my voice talking about this particular trip. We went to Wyoming. We went to Devil's Tower again. Just the scenery as we drove into Wyoming, and they had just had that little bit of a snow. It was very, very attractive. It was very, it's just such a perfect scenic drive, and it's so different. You know, as each of these states have their own kind of vibe and look to them. You know, and coming from Kentucky, you know, I am used to rural sites and driving around, but and we hit the Badlands, we hit Custer State Park. We saw a ton of buffalo. I got some great video of some buffalo I'll put up a little bit later. Prairie dogs. I could go on and on, but yeah, so anyway, we're just driving. This is us driving to Rapid City, and here's some billboards.